Welcome to Innovators at the Intersection. I'm Jordan Weiss, and with my co-host, Jess Petion, we engage with change makers that are shaping the future.
Produced by Creative World Media.
This podcast is an extension of Diversity in Action magazine that's been highlighting innovation for over a decade. On today's episode of Innovators at the Intersection, we're excited to feature Dr. Lawrence Udeigwe, Associate Professor at Manhattan College and Affiliate Researcher at MIT. Dr. Udeigwe also happens to be a very talented composer and musician, a true innovator at the intersection.
So I have a first question.
Okay,
so let's talk about your journey. You came here from Nigeria to the United States.
Yes.
And then you pursued your career into mathematics and into music. Mm-hmm. So just briefly tell me about that. Like, what inspired you to do both of those?
Well, maybe I should start from when I was a kid.
Okay, yeah.
yeah. I grew up in a small town called Makurdi, Benue State in Nigeria. It's the state capital of Benue State. That was where I was born, and I grew up there. It was a very fun, fun upbringing, very peaceful, and at the same time, it was just set up to give me the right amount of nurturing when it comes to education, when it comes to academics, when it comes to sports, which I didn't do a lot of, and when it comes to the arts. Even though in that town, the parents were very careful. It's changed a little bit in Nigeria now. The parents were always very careful then to not let their kids venture too much away from academics, like you couldn't just say, okay, I want to be a musician. They wouldn't support you. Mm-hmm. Not because they had anything against it, but because of the prospect. They just knew that the prospect is very, very, very minute as compared to going to school and getting a degree and then getting a job. So for me, growing up, I focused on academics. Right. I was made to just focus on getting good grades from primary school. My entire primary school, I came first in class, which is like reflecting back now. I'm like, how did I do that?
That's
and
then pretty commendable.
Yes, I have to say. Yeah. So when I went to secondary school, I wanted to study the sciences. Like it's funny because in Nigerian secondary school, after the first secondary school is 6 years, like your junior high
like
and high school.
Yeah,
middle school and high school. Yeah, here. Mm-hmm. So it's secondary school. So after the first 3 years, they have to force you to either take the sciences. So you have to do rigorous chemistry, physics, biology, and mathematics. So that was what I did. So I didn't have room for, I didn't even have the time to do things in the arts. Wow. I didn't think of studying the arts. But from when I was 8 years old, I had already known that I wanted to do something in the arts. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I wanted to do something in the sciences. So it's funny that I knew from when I was young, very, very young, that I wanted to be these two things. Now, the two things that I had to do, I did not know. So in the arts, I said to myself, I would either be a musician, an actor, or like a musician and an actor. And then when it comes to the sciences, I wanted to be a mathematician or a programmer, like a hardcore programmer.
Right. So you already like kind of knew your path.
Yes, I knew my path. I knew I wanted to choose one from the sciences and choose one from the arts, So from in secondary school, I got interested in music. I got interested in hip hop. Got interested in R&B, and I was just messing with vocals, like singing then and performing. But then I came to college. Now, fast forward, I applied to Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I got admitted to study computer science, which took care of the programming aspect. I thought I was going to be a programmer, And then I got interested in jazz, I came to college and I joined the choir. I'm a Catholic, so I joined the Catholic chapel choir. It's a Catholic university. And from there, I saw how people did music. I saw that, you could actually do music rigorously and still do other things. So I inquired about the music department. When I went to the music department and saw what was going on, I wanted to minor in music, but they didn't have minors in music. They didn't have any provisions to do a minor in music. So I got interested and started talking to people, and they said, you could just learn. You could take piano lessons here and there. You could practice the piano here and there. And in that process, I started listening to jazz. And that was how I got captivated, So I was doing computer science, and I was learning theory, jazz theory, music theory via jazz. But by the time I was about to graduate, not when I was about to graduate. Like after my second year, I discovered that I actually wanted to be a mathematician. So I switched to math. But by then, I had already gotten a lot of credits, so many credits doing computer science. So I ended up double majoring in math and computer science. I got a BA in computer science and a BS in mathematics. And by the time I finished, I actually wanted to stop with going to school, with academics, and go to New York.
And
pursue music, pursue theater, actually.
Theater?
Music theater, study music, and, But I was on a visa. I was on a student visa.
Right.
I didn't want to get a regular job. I wanted to be free to chart my own path. So I went to graduate school. I thought I would get a master's and then come out, maybe get a job, and then maybe work for like 1 or 2 years and then use the money to make albums and become a musician. But as time goes on, I'm like, you know what? I got a PhD because I thought by the time I finished, if I kept going and did a PhD, maybe I would grow out of this fascination for the arts, fascination for music and so forth. I thought like if I graduate and have a PhD and get a job as a college professor, I wouldn't have time. I wouldn't even want to be thinking. I would be too old to be worrying about doing music, like for like as a full-time job or making, recording songs. And, I thought I would just grow out of it.
Could I ask you a question? Why? A couple things.
Yeah.
First, when going back to when you said it was R&B and hip-hop, like that drew you in. Do you remember, was there a specific group or song that really grabbed you, that gave you kind of that bug of like...
you'd be surprised.
Because that's important.
You said at 8,
you guys are Jersey people.
Yes,
surprised.
Jersey. Yep.
We are Jersey.
Naughty by Nature.
Okay.
Are they Jersey?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tretch.
Queen Latifah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People forget that she's like a badass rapper.
I mean, I'm familiar very much so with both of them.
Of course, Snoop Dogg. Of course, like the West Coast people, Warren G.
I love Warren G.
Yeah, Dr. Dre.
Yeah,
that was
the G-Funk, the G-Funk era.
Yeah.
Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Yeah, they were doing it. And interesting.
So that period, that was what...
It was eclectic. That was an eclectic time.
I was very, very into. I was very interested in those kind of sounds then.
But that led you to jazz?
Jazz, I discovered jazz when I came to the US.
Right.
My soul just magically accepted jazz. I'm like, this is where I feel comfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
So the other thing I was going to say is, why do you feel that it sounds like you were like judging yourself, or you're giving yourself kind of these parameters to not pursue music. Like it seemed like you were saying, I'm going to stick with academics, with the sciences.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you didn't want yourself to go that direction. Why?
Because I had never seen anybody that did what I'm doing now, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I know people who I'm sure they exist, but I've not met them, I know people who are who have PhDs in mathematics and play the heck out of the piano and they know music theory and everything, but they don't go out performing every week. They don't go out and play in the clubs. You know, they're not making albums, dropping songs. You know, they're not interacting with people in the industry. In the industry. So, and I know people who are mathematicians who do mathematics of music, but they're just like focused on the academics. They're probably very good mathematicians and excellent musicians, but they are just there. They found their intersection and they are comfortable with it and doing it in a very academically driven way. I, on the other side, I am an artist. I'm a performer and then an academic.
Got it.
I am not an academic who wants to study music from the academic perspective. That could happen later, but for now, I want to remain a performer who, if you see me on stage, you won't say this is a musician doing jazz. You say, oh, this is a jazz musician. Yep. You know, and that's how people see me now.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah. So that's why it was difficult because I had not seen. I'm like, okay, is this going to totally kill my... Right.
You didn't really have a bench. You didn't have any
so do you feel that freedom that you wanted with the arts, you kind of felt guilty and that's why you went all the way. I mean, you were like, I didn't want to do any more academics, but you got your PhD. So
you are so right. I think guilt.
That's what I say, like,
that's one way.
One way to the arts.
To describe it. I'm like, let me get to this. One part of it is that I didn't want anybody to ever question what I was doing. You know, like if I had gotten a bachelor's degree and said, okay, I'm going to pursue music, maybe some people, maybe relatives, maybe my parents back then would have been like, are you sure this is what you want to do? You know, how are you making money from this? So in addition to that guilt, another thing was still pursuing that freedom of, hey, I'm going to get to the end, get a job, and then nobody's going to talk to me. Nobody,
pay for your dreams,
pay for my dreams. So I was just making money and spending it on my music and making the kind of music I wanted to make. Yeah.
All right.
Which leads me to my second question. You know, you have your PhD.
Yeah.
And, you know, you do dynamic solutions.
Yeah.
And then you're in this whole Afro jazz field and globally, and you're performing. How do you feel those things intertwine? I know we talked about your journey, and you're like, you know, you kind of suppressed it a little bit because you pursued all your mathematics, went for computer programming, you double and major, and you felt like, you know, let me just get the academics out the way. But how do you feel that creative process intertwines with one another?
Oh, that's a very good question, because an easy answer to the question is that they don't. That they actually that's like, okay, I don't want to say anything kind of answer. That they actually do. And remember, I just said that I wanted to be a performer, an artist, and then an academic. So for that reason, sometimes they don't come together easily, you know. But I'm glad I demarcated the two of them, and I put like a demarcation between the two of them and let each of them grow. And then to naturally, perfunctorily come together by itself. And it's just beginning to happen now.
As far as, kind of building off of that, like what can we look for as far as future collaborations, projects, performances? What are you working on now, or what do you hope to work on involving these different areas as an artist, as a musician, as a producer, as a composer, getting your stuff out there, and also being multifaceted, having a pretty wide palette from, jazz, hip hop, R&B, and then also being able to draw from math. It's would love to hear.
Oh, okay. So I'm working on an album right now. It's I was telling you guys about it before we
That's okay.
Yeah,
we want to hear about it.
10 songs. I want 10 songs. I want it to be an album, not an EP. Yeah. By the way, even when I make an EP, because EP is 6 tracks. Right. Once it's 7, they call it an album, or you can call it an album. There's some people make 8 songs and they call it an EP. Well, right. I always call mine an album. and I'll force it to go.
Well, that's okay. You had groups like, certain groups like Pink Floyd that, maybe put a record out with 4 songs that were maybe that long. Each song was, so it's whatever.
Yeah. But I'm working on 10 songs. I'm trying to put the album out in August.
Okay.
Of this year. Yeah, most of it is already recorded.
What kind of sound? What kind of vibe? What are we looking at, or what are we looking? What are we hearing?
Okay, good. It's a fusion of jazz.
Okay.
And I would say West African sound. Yeah, some people would just say jazz and Afro beats, but it's more of jazz and West African pop sound fused together. But the DNA of the song, the music is jazz. Most of it is gonna be recorded live and mixed from the jazz palette.
Nice.
So, what would you say is the difference between the album that you previously have done and this album here?
Well, good question. What actually inspired me was that in 2023, I guess it's 2 years ago already, 2023, I went to Nigeria and I did a collaboration with I didn't do it in Nigeria, but I did the collaboration. I started it's a song called Do, and a friend of mine, his name is Skills. Skills is a big Afrobeat musician. He lives in Nigeria. So I collaborated with him on a song, and it did pretty well. And from there, I wanted to experiment more with that sound, that Afrobeat sound.
I go do that thing where I come here to do. You know fit come the asking why. You two want do it in your eye.
Yeah, like you no want do. How many times where you no come through? Countless times where I don't want
to. So between your academic career, your musical career, is there any specific moment that you can remember or recollect that really connects both of those areas that resonates with you? That something that combined both math and music? Is there a moment?
Okay, you're not going to be surprised by this answer. And I'm not trying to pander. This is one of those moments, actually. And when you guys covered me in your magazine, the magazine, Diversity magazine,
yes,
it's one of those moments because you might see them as little things, but they are not.
Okay.
Because they are affirmation. They're affirming what you've been doing in the dark. Like, I don't know anybody who is leading the kind of life I'm leading in terms of combining two.
I don't know many either. Seriously.
Yeah. So having somebody or an organization say, "Oh, let's talk about this person,"
right?
It does it for me. It did it for me. So you can see that for more than a year now, I've pinned your coverage.
That means so much.
Yeah,
I mean,
on my Instagram.
That's amazing.
So there are a bunch of other moments, but that stands out, and I think it's appropriate to talk about it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's very touching.
Very nice
Thank
to
you
say.
so much.
It's a great journey, from being 8 and now you're here and all these things that have arise from your, because you always knew that you wanted to do these two things. So, a lot of people, it's like, I want to be this or I want to be that, but they never pursue their journey. So for you to have pursued it, both of the things
and
that
I
you
was going to say, in both things.
Yeah, both of your passions. I always say, like, your passions are your contributions.
Yes.
If you're not passionate about what you're doing, then you're not really contributing as a person. That's how I feel.
I agree.
So it's amazing how you just, even though you felt a little guilty about it, you kind of suppressed it for a little bit. You finally was like, you know what? I
suppressed the art.
And you shouldn't feel guilt. You should not. I hope you've gotten over the guilt though, right?
Oh yes, of course.
No more guilt.
Yeah.
It's okay. Music, art should not feel good. We need more of that. We need more of it.
Thank you very much for having me. This is a spectacular medium, and I appreciate being on it. Thank you.
Thank you.